have been going on about they've been given this new document in the Jay Slater case that points to Lucy being there, etc. So today I got handed those documents. Thank you, Stace. But they call Jay Slater Jane. He's called Jane Slater throughout them all. Jane Dean Slater. And Lucy's middle name is Gregory. So I'm reading them thinking, what kind of court doesn't get this right? Kim Smelly. Are you calling that me, Kim? You just walk in and go, you're smelly. But I just, they look official court paperwork, right? But I just don't see how. So this is the first one here. It looks like this. And this is a document. And so it looks like this, right? And it says Lucy May Gregory. If you look at Jay's name there, it says Jane Dean Slater. So I'm going to tell you what they say now, because this is the original Spanish one. And in the original Spanish one, he's called Jane Dean Slater. Now, I don't know how it works in Spain, but I'm pretty sure you'd at least get his name right. Now, another part, they call him Jay. Lucy, they call Lucy May Gregory Law, which I can't completely rule out, but someone's called her that. And maybe Gregory Law would be like a dog-barrel surname, I don't know. But to call him Jane in place of Jay just seems really strange. We've transferred them over to English. So I will read you what it says. She has two surnames, that's fine, but he's definitely not called Jane. That's very misgendering. Call him Jane Dean Slater. I just can't think that's an official document, and you've called him Jane 4 times. My daughter's sister's type has been awful. Right, okay, so I'm going to read it to you anyway, just in case the person who has typed up the paperwork has just done it from voice notes, and maybe they've just got the name wrong. Maybe they don't know the Jay Slater case. Obviously, Jay's not really a Spanish name either, so I'm just thinking maybe they've just, it is real paperwork. The Spanish YouTubers who are doing this have said this is official. They've got it from the courts, they've got it from so-and-so, and they're saying it is official. And it does point to some of the things we've always said, which was that Lucy was there that day, and the only reason Jay would have ever gone back to the Airbnb is if his friend Lucy, who knew Ayub, went. Ayub said no to an interview with me. He won't do it. He said that I've already done enough interviews, even though I've only ever done one, I'm not doing another one. And then he's put laugh out loud, and I've put come on. And I have made a video today where I've addressed him not wanting to do the interview, because I just think maybe he'll be pushed into it a little bit. And if anyone's in here from Ayub's team or can talk to him, I swear on my life, I promise I'm not trying to embarrass him. I'm not going to put him on the spot. I'm going to ask him very basic questions. I want to know how Jay was that day. Did he seem really intoxicated? I want to know if he had kind of spoke about why he was leaving. I want to know the reason why Jay originally came back to the Airbnb instead of going back to his hotel. And I also want to know who else was in the car. And I do think with my size platform, if Ayub comes across well and like he's telling the truth, that may close the whole case down as an accident. And I also think I've got enough sway on my channel that people, if he can convince me, he can probably convince a lot of people. So I think it's a good opportunity for him to make this go away. And I also think, I don't think he ever was Louisa. I don't think ever properly he was. I know they went up to the Airbnb to ask like a couple of questions, but I don't think he was ever taken in for questioning. He actually, in fact, left Spain, come back to Luton area, I believe, and then went back over there to collect the stuff he'd left at the Airbnb like 2 days later. So he didn't feel like in any kind of harm of going back over there, or was he going to get arrested? They were written off as, you know, we know the Spanish verdict was that Jay always went missing and had an accident. I don't believe you know everything. So it says, this is what the paperwork says. This procedure was initiated due to the disappearance of Mr. J. Dean Slater, a British citizen who, while on vacation on the island Tenerife in June of 2024. On June 18th, 2024, a letter was received from the organic unit of the Judicial Police Territory Team of Puerto de la Cruz, stating that on June 17th, 2024, Miss Lucy May Gregory Law appeared at the premises in the main post of Hijo de los Vinos, reporting that she was on vacation on the island with her friend Jane Dean Slater. They were both in town of Masca at a friend's house. So please take that in mind, that her and Jay were both at a friend's house on Masca. Okay. Once the complainant woke up, she noticed her friend was not at the home anymore. The latter told her he'd gone for a walk in the area at 8:50 a.m. He received a phone call, which is Lucy, I believe, her, from Jane Dean Slater informing him that he had suffered a fall and injured one leg, that his battery was running out and he was afraid he was going to die. These events gave rise to a police investigation, and then it gives you a reference number from the main post office of ICOD de Los Vinos. In response to these events, a corresponding criminal procedure was initiated with PD number, and it's given us another reference number, and the investigative proceedings aimed at clarifying the facts were being carried out. Now that tells us that Lucy and Jay would be back at the Airbnb, that something's happened at the Airbnb, and at 8:50 she has decided whatever's happened enough, that she can now try and alert the police. It talks about her going into some kind of... It doesn't, however, tell us what time she went into the police. Because if you remember correctly, she was still asking people on that Tenerife page to come search with her, and she said an American woman did. And that wasn't until about 6 p.m, I don't think. So it's... I don't understand. Like, if you got a call from someone, or someone coming to the police station and said, my friend said, no, Lucy was not at the funeral. Neither was Brandon. Only Brad was. I believe Warren Slater sent Brandon away. I believe. If Lucy gets wanted in Spain, will England please get her? They'll probably return her to Spain, I imagine, but they will arrest her. I have always said, and I am quite willing to at some point put out my whole messages between me and Lucy if it helps with the case. And I spoke to her for days and days and days. And I kept saying to her, why would Jay go back there? Like, why would Jay go back to an Airbnb when he'd never met Ayub before? Like, unless you were there, you knew him, you were the connection. Like, if he thought there was going to be a house party or whatever. I also believe Brandon was there. I do believe Brandon was there, but I can't say for sure. Because we've had no official documentation to say, but I do think this is very interesting. I think there needs to be some explanation of how you're misnaming him. What do you believe honestly about her? I believe that Lucy was involved in the criminal underworld. I believe that she was peddling massive amounts of drugs. I believe that she asked Jay to come over. I believe that she's always kind of known what was going on. I think there was a moment when she realised that people weren't just buying the sweetness and light act when she started coming onto the media, but she would only do it from like the back of her head. She would never be on camera or on face. And I think, like, I'm not even really thinking about that. I'm going to want to connect with the camera. If I'm appealing for my friend, I really don't know what's happened. Now she's advertising going to other raves than that, Miss Nova. Like, she ain't asked. Like, she, I believe that, I don't believe Ayub killed Jay Slater, but I believe Ayub knows what happened 100%. I believe Lucy knew what happened. Now, Brandon went back to he went back to the UK, even though he lived in Tenerife. He come back to the UK. And he told people at a wedding he went to that Jay Slater was dead twice, but Jay Slater hadn't been found by then. So how did you all know he was dead? And I think what a brilliant way that we're finding now. Because remember, Lucy had said originally to the press, Jay had hurt his leg on a cactus, and he was and then Ayub kind of said he was in a ditch, right? So we're seeing different statements. But it appears you told police here on the first day he had suffered a fall. He had suffered a fall and injured one leg, and his battery was running out, and he was afraid of dying. So if you'd known all that beforehand, and the police knew that, surely ravines and stuff would be the only place you'd be going to check, because you had assumed he had fallen and hurt himself. I just don't get it. I don't get how, you know, when she's been interviewed by ITV and that, she didn't say, like, he told me he'd fallen, he'd hurt his leg, he felt like he was going to die. Like, I just don't understand. He can't, like, we were always told by Lucy he cut his leg on a cactus. And then Ayub came out in the Daily Mail and said he was laying in a ditch. He'd hurt his leg. Now we're hearing he's had a massive fall and he's like, I think I'm dying. But then why didn't he phone the emergency number or his mum? If I think I'm dying, he was found, Amy. If I think I'm dying, I'm phoning my family. I ain't phoning Lucy or Ayub or anyone I take drugs with or party with. I'm phoning my family. If I really think I'm dying. So they did do an autopsy back in the UK. There's still none of those things have been kind of put out. Like, I'd love to see the autopsy report, to be fair, just to kind of get an understanding of, like, those injuries. Are they the same as what you'd have if you fell? Or would they be something you may get from something else? Now, if you think about the Nathan Osmond case, and I have read his autopsy, Nathan Osman was the one that fell off the cliff in Benidorm, and they were still looking into if there's criminality there. Now, his injuries were so extensive and horrific that I can look at the autopsy report, and then the police say down the bottom, his injuries are only consistent with a fall. And I'm like, how do you know that? Like, his legs hanging on, his ankles hanging on, like, he has scuffs, cuts, all of those things. Like, how do you know that's not from a beating beforehand? How can you tell me specifically that those injuries could only have come from a fall? Like, you can't say that. Unless you can tell me what bit of the cliff every single injury was caused by, it could just as well that he was pushed off the cliff, that he ran off the cliff, that he was terrified. It doesn't answer any of the questions. The timestamps are imperative to work out the time of each thing. I just think the reason I came back onto the Jay Slater case, and I have messaged Warren today just to say, look, I've decided to work the case again, and I've given him till like 6 o'clock tonight to say whether he wants me to or not, because if he messages me and says no, then I'll leave it. I honestly will leave it. If he doesn't message you back or he says, like, go for it, then I will. Because I do think there needs to be justice. But I have said, Ditsy, I already announced yesterday I'm back on the Jay Slater case, and I'm deep diving it tonight. So I already announced that. So tonight is going to be very basic because we need to go through the whole case for people that didn't live through the case and didn't follow it all the time. So I am going to just start with like what we knew in the media, what was happening, the searches, all that stuff. And then tomorrow we'll probably delve into more like what we know since, like the things coming out on Lucy. I'll go through some of our messages with you. We'll talk about the Brandon side of things. Now, what I will tell you, which is the only one message she ever sent me and deleted because it was a video, was on the day I kept accusing Lucy of being with Jay in the car. She said to me, I wasn't, because I was with Brandon in the back of a taxi. And she sent me a video of her and Brandon in the back of a car. You couldn't see if anyone else was on the back seat because she'd filmed it like this, just over to where her and Brandon were. And it was time-stamped. And I can't remember what the timestamp said, but I'm pretty sure it was around about 5 a.m. because it was early hours in the morning. She was like, how could I be with Brandon on the way back to the hotel if I was with Jay? But now I'm thinking you were the other side of the car and Jay was there, here in this seat, which you're not filming. And that was your proof. Now, she took that video back. It was like on a one-time view. And that's the only thing she ever sent me of a one-time view. Everything else I've still got. And I'm like, I said, give me that video, send it to me. I'll put it up and be like, here's Lucy and Brandon. Like, they weren't with Jay. Because I wanted to look more into, like, did it look like the same car Jay was in and compare both sides of the car from the photo of him with the watch. But I just didn't get enough detail. I didn't even get a chance to look. And if I'd known it was one-time view, I would have screenshot it with my phone, but I just didn't. Why would you even, like, the photo was bizarre. It was like her sat near the window, Brandon sat in the middle. No, it wasn't. It was her in the middle, Brandon on the side of the window here, and her kind of taking the photo like that. So whoever would have been there would have been cut out, and it was a dark vehicle. But the backlight was on when they took the picture, so you could make out it was her and Brandon. But now I think, in grand scheme of things, that how far ahead did you know you had something to cover up? Because it's very bizarre to me. Morning, Tinkerbell. I remember this. Why didn't she say they went back to her villa? So she said her and Brandon were going back to her apartment, and she actually said to me beforehand that they went back much earlier. And then when she showed me that video, I said, that's the early hours of the morning, like around the time Jay would have left the club. And she went, oh, I probably got that a bit confused. I just remember being with Brandon in the taxi. Maybe the taxi took a little way to get there. But I remember thinking, like, originally she tried to make it sound, she said 1 a.m. She said she left way earlier. She was tired from the night before. She wanted to go to sleep. And then she's like, oh, yeah, maybe I was waiting for a taxi. Like, you could have walked back to her place easily. And if you remember, the blanket that's never been recovered, apparently, was from her hotel. It was from where she was staying. I don't remember off the top of my head, Chloe, which hotel they were staying in now, just because I haven't looked at it for so long. No, so she said 1 a.m. she'd left the club by. And if you remember correctly, like in the videos of Jay, we could see her in her white outfit coming down the stairs. At some point she looked like she had 2 bags. And when people said that's you, she was like, maybe it was a bit later, maybe I didn't remember exactly what time I left. But in the grand scheme of things, like if my friend goes missing and you're like, what time did you leave a nightclub? I'm like, I've got no idea, I was smashed. Like, I was smashed. But the fact that you had to put yourself so far away from the scene, and then every time someone could show you proof, you'd bring it forward a little bit. Thank you guys for the happy. Thank you, Pad. It just seems strange. Now, the one thing that always tipped me off as something was really odd I do now have a Pokemon Go in the Discord for all you children. Pag is in charge of it because I'm an adult and I don't play it. Go, 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 gotta catch 'em all. Yeah, the thing that always didn't sit right with me is if you remember the Jay's ping location, she was really close to the ping location. It was almost like she was stood about 200 yards away and capturing the ping location. And I always said, who had Jay's phone when you made that ping location? Because Jay was already gone. So who took that pin location and why were you so fucking close to it? And then there was the discrepancy when she said Jay had phoned her, then we found out it was her. It was an outgoing call. And she changed the story again. So to me, it was always like somebody in that second car that came to the Airbnb took Jay. And then two of you, probably Brandon and you, had to go out into the mountains to make it look like he went into the mountains. That's what you made it look like. I play Monopoly every day on my phone. That's what it looked like. And Brad, mummy's boy Brad, has a proof on his phone that he had a chat with Jay on Snapchat. But we don't know it was Jay. You don't have any phone calls, screenshots or anything. It could have been anyone. Oh, Glyn, I'm big on Monopoly Go. We don't know it was you. We don't know. If I want to make it look like someone was still alive at a certain point or still with me, Lucy could have phoned Brad. And hey, Lucy could have phoned Brad off Jay's phone. We don't know it was Jay on that phone still. And if you remember correctly, Brad didn't remember nothing until everyone on social media was shouting, until everyone was shouting, why didn't he stick on the main path? Why did he go into the mountains? And then Brad comes on the interview with ITV with Isla and says, I saw him go over the stones on the side of the road, like heading into the mountains. So he definitely did go that way on his own. And it was like, so you've not done any searching, Brad. You've never, ever, ever done an interview. But now you need to prove to us that actually Jay did go off the side of the road. And he was fine. He was laughing. Okay? He was laughing. He stumbled over the white stones at the side of the road. And if you remember quickly, there was 2 calls in quick succession. What did Brad say? He started getting another phone call come through, which was the Lucy call, right? So you're laughing, falling over the little bricks on the side of the road, which we know when you go over that first wall, the bricks like that separate you from the main road, you have a slight little drop. Like anyone could get down, like even my nan, if she was still here, God bless her soul. It's a very small little thing. Now, he's laughing with Brad. He's on video chat. He's showing him the rocks he's stumbling down. Lucy ends the call with Brad by phoning Jay. By that point, Jay says, I've fallen down. I think I'm dying. How? How in that one call you laughing, you've just fallen over the little wall and now you're in the fucking middle of nowhere, hours away down a ravine. Like, unless there's some kind of time machine or there was some kind of massive fucking lapse, it can't have happened. You're both, or one of you is lying because you can't both be telling the truth. And that's probably, I'm disappointed that I have said no to the interview, but I am going to just keep making videos and put pressure on him until he agrees to it, to be fair. Because I want to. But they've got to both be lying because I don't believe it was Jay on the phone. I don't think Jay had that phone anymore. I don't think Jay was anywhere in the area at that time. 100%, Ben. I think whatever had happened had already happened. Jay was taken from that area in the second car that arrived at the Airbnb about half an hour after they got back from Tenerife into Masca. And then he did say no. He said, I've already done enough interviews, even though I've done one. And then they had to go out into the mountains, make a few calls, take down that spot. Now, what I find really interesting is about Jay's phone, right? I don't know where Jay's phone is now. I know the family don't have it. And it was apparently found with Jay, found on a beach, and found in the overgrowth. Like, remember the day, and I got this straight from Millie, when Millie was out searching, the commander came down, and just next to where that last ping spot was, near the palm tree, they found the phone. They have the phone today. They found the phone. The phone, they said, could not have got there by itself. It had been thrown, okay? And Millie said, are you going to announce this in the media? And they said, look, just leave it for now. And the phone screen had been smashed. It had been thrown in there. Then also it's found on his body. It can't have been in 2 locations. It cannot have been found in 2 locations. It's impossible. It's impossible. If he had 2 phones, then still one was thrown into the overgrowth, and it's unlikely a boy who's just walking home, who's worried his battery is dying, has gone, hi, yeah, no, I feel like I'm dying, I've fallen down a ravine, hang on, I'm just going to phone my phone so I can't get any help. And then he's gone, oh no, I didn't really fall, I'll just keep walking for about 40 minutes, then I'll fall. Like, none of this makes sense. Chris Tenerife also said it had been thrown until he flipped and become part of the enemy team, and then he just flipped overnight. You remember you sending that girl those really random messages that made no sense, just like acting really paranoid and strange. Then he just came back as a villain, which is where he stayed. So from what I've heard from people, that I did try to tell people about a phone on a live, and Luggy hushed him. Thank you, Andrea. See how messed up he was on drugs. See, he was a 19-year-old boy who was soon going home, and think, I'm going to trust you with a bag with 40k worth of drugs in it. It doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. That's like me randomly walking into a nightclub now, finding the most messed up person who's stumbling on the floor, who stood in his final photos like that, and me going, is there any way you could just look after this 50 grand bag for me? Like, and I'll be back in a minute. And then me coming back and me being like, oh, how did you lose that? And he's like, I've lost my fucking marbles tonight. Look at the state of me. I'll get it off my head. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, when we have a network of kind of dealing, we have like a general, then we have people underneath, people underneath, there's a chain, and you will be sent out into different locations. You will have rules, like you don't touch anything yourself that night, you don't get drunk. It's too far-fetched to believe they saw Jay Slater. And Jay Slater was known, yeah, he was doing balloons, he was doing cat, he was doing everything, even back home. Thank you, H. He liked to have a beer. Like he was probably the last person you would have chose to look after anything. Like honestly, the last person. Does anyone think Airbnb to where he was found know what the distance was? I think, Charles, I literally need to get the maps up today. I'm literally going to go, in a little while, I'm going to go through all my things, and I'm just going to get all that. How do we know he was, though, for sure? How do we know he was the what, though? I think you only have to look at the most heartbreaking last image of Jay Slater in the club. And we also have the club manager who says, like, I was trying to give this boy water. I thought he was going to have a medical episode. He wasn't in a good way. We also have him stumbling, falling on the floor while his friends don't help him. We also know his track record, looking at his Instagram, is beers, is cat, is fucking balloons. We're not foolish, right? As people, we can understand why kids go to Tenerife. We understand. So there was no point in like looking deeper. And some people do, right? Some people try and conspiracize everything, and they're like, okay, perhaps he wasn't wrecked, he was pretending to be. And then I'm not doing that. Like, this was a 19-year-old kid. He wasn't a mastermind criminal. He wasn't out there to do any kind of job or anything else. Whatever had happened to Jay Slater probably was set in motion back in Lancashire. Or it was as simple as they robbed a watch and someone had to pay, and they didn't give too much of a fucks about Jay Slater, so he paid. There is a part of me that believes heavily that the second car that turned up at Masca was sent there. So I have to take you back to a tip that came out during the case. If you remember correctly, there was a tip that came out in the beginning of the case that there was a watch stolen from the hotel the boys were staying in of someone from Lancashire, that kind of way. Well, actually, he was a gangster from Salford, I'll be really honest with you. And he had a watch taken, and he turned up at Lucy's apartment, knocked on the door and said, where the fuck is my watch? I know it was you guys. And she said, my friends are up in Masca. And the car then arrived. Not pot paper, no. Nothing to do with them. And the car then arrived. It also could be that she was in that car taking them out to the Airbnb, as she'd already been there before, which I do believe she had been there before. Yeah, sure. And there is actually pictures of him in the nightclub that night. There is actual pictures of him in that nightclub that night.